Well, hello there, and welcome back to our little home on wheels. For those of you who are new here, I'm John, and this is my incredible wife, and partner in adventure, Karen. And our home, for the last 6 years, has been this trusty camper van we call Serendipity. We get asked a lot of questions. People want to know about budgets, about breakdowns, about the best places to see the sunrise. But you know, one of the questions we get more than almost any other is about food. Specifically, what do we cook when we're out here, with nothing but an open fire and a sky full of stars? It seems a lot of you are curious about how we turn a simple patch of dirt into a 5-star kitchen. Karen smiles, her face lit by the warm, golden light of the setting sun. We're parked in a small, secluded meadow high in the Italian Dolomites. The peaks around us are turning a soft shade of rose, a phenomenon they call enrosadira here. It feels like the mountains themselves are blushing. It's true, she says, her voice carrying the comfortable warmth of the fire we've just started crackling to life. We've had some of our most memorable meals sitting right where we are now, on camp chairs, with plates balanced on our knees. So tonight, we thought we'd do something a little different. We're going to share our secrets. We're going to cook for you, right here, and walk you through the top 5 campfire recipes that we absolutely swear by. These aren't just meals, they're stories. Each one is tied to a place, a memory, a lesson learned on this incredible journey of ours. I gesture to the collection of pots, pans, and ingredients spread out on our fold-out table. Consider this your invitation to dinner. We've got a lot to get through, and the sun is dipping fast. So grab a seat, get comfortable, and let's get cooking. First up, we're tackling a giant. A legend. A recipe born from what felt like a complete disaster. Karen pulls out a massive, shallow pan, its surface seasoned and dark from years of use. It's our paella pan. It takes up almost the entire tabletop. This, she announces with a grin, is what we call the "we broke down in the Pyrenees" paella. The story begins, as many of our best ones do, with the groan of failing machinery. We were maybe 2 years into our life on the road, still relatively green, pushing Serendipity up a winding pass somewhere deep in the Spanish Pyrenees. The views were staggering, all jagged peaks and emerald valleys, but the van was not happy. The engine temperature gauge was creeping into the red, and a sound like a bag of angry spanners was rattling from under the hood. I remember the moment it happened, I recount, carefully arranging the logs on the fire to create a wide, even bed of coals. Getting the heat right for this dish is the first and most important step. There was a final, shuddering clunk, a puff of steam, and then, silence. The kind of profound silence you only get miles from anywhere. We coasted to a stop on a small, gravelly turnout overlooking a valley that probably hadn't changed in 500 years. We were stranded. No cell service. The nearest village was a tiny speck we'd passed miles back. For a moment, a cold knot of panic tightened in my stomach. This was the part of van life nobody puts in the glossy brochures. The reality of being vulnerable, isolated, and completely at the mercy of the situation. Karen takes over the story as she chops onions and peppers, the rhythmic tap-tap-tap of her knife a comforting counterpoint to the crackle of the fire. We spent the rest of that day trying to diagnose the problem, which basically involved John staring into the engine bay and making thoughtful noises while I made us endless cups of tea. By nightfall, we were resigned to our fate. We were stuck. The next morning, as the sun burned the mist out of the valley, we heard a sound. A sputtering, chugging noise that grew steadily louder. An ancient, blue tractor appeared around the bend, driven by a man who looked as weathered and timeless as the mountains themselves. He had a face crinkled with 1,000 smiles and eyes the color of the summer sky. His name was Santiago. He didn't speak a word of English, and our Spanish was, let's call it, enthusiastic but limited, I say with a laugh. But through a ridiculous series of hand gestures, pointing, and me making engine explosion sounds, he understood. He just nodded, a slow, knowing gesture, and patted the van's bonnet like a tired horse. He couldn't fix it, but he could help. He disappeared down the mountain on his tractor and returned a few hours later, not with a mechanic, but with a bag of groceries and a bottle of wine. That evening, he built a fire, pulled out a pan even bigger and more battered than this one, and proceeded to cook for us. Karen drizzles a generous amount of olive oil into the pan, which is now sitting precariously over the coals. It sizzles instantly. He didn't use a recipe book. It was all feel. A bit of this, a handful of that. Onions, peppers, garlic, all sizzling away and filling the air with the most incredible aroma. He had rabbit, chorizo, and these fat, beautiful beans. He taught us to build at the sofrito, the flavor base. He showed us how to add the rice, stirring it until it was coated in the oil and translucent, like tiny pearls. She adds the rice to our pan now, mimicking the memory. Then came the saffron-infused broth. The whole thing simmered away under the stars. We communicated with smiles and shared wine from a simple glass tumbler. And when it was ready, he served it straight from the pan. It wasn't just food, it was a communion. An act of profound, uncomplicated kindness. We ate until we were full, the silence of the mountains punctuated by our murmurs of appreciation. The next day, Santiago arranged for a tow truck from the village. It took 2 more days to get the part we needed. But what could have been a stressful, trip-ending disaster had been transformed. It became a lesson. A breakdown became a breakthrough. So this recipe, I say, watching Karen add the chicken and chorizo, is our tribute to Santiago. It's a reminder that sometimes, the best things happen when your plans fall apart. It taught us that you don't need a common language to show kindness, and that the most generous people are often those with the least to give. The paella bubbles away, the rice absorbing the rich, savory broth. The aroma is taking me right back to that dusty turnout in the Pyrenees. When it's finally ready, with a perfect, crispy layer of rice on the bottom, the sauerkraut, we scoop it onto our plates. The first bite is a wave of flavor, smoky chorizo, tender chicken, the sweetness of the peppers, and the earthy, luxurious hum of saffron. It tastes like generosity. It tastes like an unexpected gift. Every time we make this, Karen says, her fork pausing mid-air, I think about how we almost panicked. How easy it would have been to see it as a failure. But that experience set the tone for the rest of our travels. It taught us to trust. To trust the journey, to trust the road, and most of all, to trust in the kindness of people. We finish our plates in contemplative silence, the fire popping softly beside us. The last of the alpenglow has faded from the peaks, leaving them as dark, formidable silhouettes against a sky pricked with the first stars. 1 dish down, 4 to go. And the night is just getting started. Alright, plates cleared? I ask, stacking our enameled dishes. Because the next stop on our culinary world tour takes us from the mountains of Spain to the bustling, chaotic, and utterly magical souks of Morocco. Karen wipes down our single, large cast-iron skillet, its surface gleaming in the firelight. This pan is the workhorse of our van kitchen. It's cooked breakfasts, lunches, and dinners on 6 different continents. This next one, she says, her eyes sparkling with the memory, is pure sensory overload, in the best possible way. We call it Karen's one-pan Moroccan miracle. It's our take on a classic tagine, but adapted for the simplicity of campfire cooking. The inspiration for this came from a single afternoon getting hopelessly, wonderfully lost in Marrakesh. She begins by dicing chicken, tossing it in a bowl with a fragrant mix of spices, cumin, coriander, turmeric, cinnamon, and ginger. The scent alone is transportive. It smells like crowded alleyways, vibrant textiles, and the promise of discovery. You have to understand Marrakesh, I explain, leaning forward. It's not a place you just see, it's a place you feel, you breathe, you taste. The Jima LFNA Square at dusk is one of the greatest shows on earth. Storytellers, musicians, snake charmers, food stalls sending plumes of fragrant smoke into the air, it's a beautiful assault on the senses. We had wandered off the main square into the maze of the souk. Every turn presented a new marvel. Mountains of olives, pyramids of spices, glistening dates, and lanterns casting intricate patterns of light on the ancient walls. We were searching for a specific spice merchant an old man had told us about, a man who supposedly had the best ras el hanout in the city. Of course, we couldn't find him, Karen laughs, adding chopped onions and garlic to the sizzling pan. We got completely turned around. Every alley looked the same. But that's the beauty of getting lost in a place like that. You stop looking for what you thought you wanted, and you start finding things you never knew you needed. We stumbled into a tiny, quiet courtyard, away from the throng. In the corner, a woman was cooking over a small brazier, tending to a collection of conical clay tagines. The smell was heavenly. She saw us looking, and with a warm, gap-toothed smile, she beckoned us over. She ladled a portion of a bubbling chicken and apricot stew onto a piece of flatbread and handed it to us. I have to admit, I interject, raising my hand. I was skeptical. Apricots. With chicken. My very British palate was having a moment of quiet rebellion. It just sounded wrong. Karen rolls her eyes at me. He's come a long way. But that first bite was a revelation. It was sweet, savory, spicy, and deeply comforting all at once. It was the taste of Morocco in a single mouthful. We bought a tagine from her, of course, and a bag of her hand-mixed spices. We spent the rest of the afternoon sitting with her, communicating through smiles as she taught us the principle of the dish. Back at the van, we realized a traditional clay tagine wasn't exactly practical for our bumpy, nomadic lifestyle. So, Karen began experimenting. How could she capture that same depth of flavor, that slow-cooked magic, in our trusty cast-iron skillet? The secret, she says, adding the spiced chicken to the pan, where it sears beautifully, is layering the flavors and controlling the heat. You create the tagine effect by using a lid and letting it simmer slowly over the embers, not the direct flame. She adds dried apricots, a splash of chicken broth, and a handful of chopped almonds. She puts the lid on the pan and moves it to the edge of the fire. Now, we wait. And we remember, she says softly. That trip taught us so much about pushing our own boundaries. Not just our culinary ones, but our personal ones. It's about being open. Open to getting lost. Open to trying something that sounds strange. Open to connecting with someone who doesn't look or live like you. It's in those moments of openness that the real magic of travel reveals itself. After about 20 minutes, Karen lifts the lid. A cloud of aromatic steam billows into the cool night air. The chicken is tender, and the sauce has thickened into a rich, golden gravy. She sprinkles it with fresh cilantro. We serve it with a side of fluffy couscous we prepared earlier. The taste is complex and harmonious. The sweetness of the apricots cuts through the richness of the chicken, the cinnamon and cumin provide a warm, earthy base, and the cilantro adds a burst of fresh, zesty brightness. It's more than just dinner. It's a passport. Each bite takes me back to that courtyard, to the kindness of that woman, to the feeling of being joyfully adrift in a sea of new experiences. See. Karen nudges me with her elbow. Apricots and chicken. A match made in heaven. I concede with a mouthful of food. You were right. As you so often are. It's a miracle. A Moroccan miracle. We eat, and for a few moments, the Dolomites around us fade away, replaced by the vibrant, unforgettable chaos of the Marrakesh souk. Okay, John. Your turn to take the lead, Karen says, passing me the metaphorical chef's hat. The fire has burned down to a perfect bed of glowing red embers, casting a warm, intimate circle of light around us. The air has grown colder, and I pull my fleece a little tighter. Perfect, I say, rubbing my hands together. Because this next dish is designed for nights exactly like this. It's a recipe born from wind, rain, and the need for a hug in a bowl. This is my tribute to the wild, rugged, and breathtakingly beautiful coast of Scotland. We're making Cullen skink. For those who haven't had the pleasure, Cullen skink is a traditional Scottish soup, a thick, creamy, and smoky concoction made with smoked haddock, potatoes, and onions. It's named after the town of Cullen on the Moray Firth, but for us, it's the official taste of the North Coast 500. We were driving that famous route, I begin, setting a heavy-bottomed pot over the embers. And Scotland was giving us the full experience. 1 minute, glorious sunshine glinting off a turquoise sea that looked almost Caribbean. The next, the sky would turn the color of slate, and a horizontal, soul-soaking rain would come blasting in off the Atlantic. We were on a particularly remote stretch of coast in Sutherland. Sheer cliffs dropped hundreds of feet to a churning, grey sea. The wind was so strong it was physically rocking the van. It was both terrifying and exhilarating. We felt so small, so insignificant against the raw power of nature. I melt a knob of butter in the pot, adding finely chopped onions. The sizzle is a sharp, welcome sound in the quiet of the night. We knew we couldn't drive any further. Karen picks up the story. It was getting dangerous. We found a tiny, gravel pull-off, barely big enough for serendipity, tucked into a small cove that offered a sliver of protection from the gale. We hunkered down for the night, the sound of the wind howling like a banshee and waves crashing against the rocks just feet away. We were cold, damp, and a little rattled. We needed comfort. Earlier that day, we'd stopped at a tiny, family-run smokehouse, a little wooden shed with smoke curling from its chimney. We'd bought a beautiful fillet of smoked haddock, its skin a burnished gold. That was my moment, I say, adding diced potatoes and broth to the pot. I knew what I had to do. While the storm raged outside, I was going to create a bubble of warmth and comfort inside our little tin box. That's the real magic of this life, you know. The van isn't just a vehicle, it's our shell. Our sanctuary. It protects us from the elements and allows us to be in these wild places, to experience the full force of them, and still be safe and warm at the end of the day. The soup needs to simmer until the potatoes are tender. As it bubbles, I flake the smoked haddock into it, the fish breaking apart into pearly white chunks. The smoky aroma immediately fills the air, mingling with the scent of wood smoke from our fire. It smells like a Scottish harbor. There's a real beauty in that kind of weather, isn't there? Karen reflects, staring into the fire. It's not postcard perfect. It's dramatic and moody and real. It reminds you that nature is in charge. It strips away the pretense and forces you to appreciate the simple things, like a dry pair of socks and a hot meal. When the potatoes are soft, I stir in a generous splash of cream, turning the soup from a simple broth into a velvety, opulent meal. I ladle it into our bowls, finishing it with a grind of black pepper and some chopped parsley. We cradle the warm bowls in our hands. The first spoonful is sublime. It's smoky, savory, and deeply satisfying. The potatoes have broken down just enough to thicken the soup, the onions provide a background sweetness, and the haddock gives it that unmistakable coastal character. It's the culinary equivalent of putting on a thick, woolen jumper. This soup, I say, tastes like resilience. It's about finding warmth in the middle of a storm. It reminds me that you don't have to run from the bad weather. Sometimes, you just need to park the van, put the kettle on, make a pot of soup, and wait it out. The sun will eventually come out again. It always does. We sit there for a while, eating our soup, the memory of the Scottish gale a vivid counterpoint to the peaceful stillness of the Dolomites. The experience wasn't about conquering the storm, it was about coexisting with it, about finding our own small pocket of comfort within its fury. And that, in itself, is a victory. Now for something a little less dramatic, Karen says, wiping the last of the soup from her bowl with a contented sigh. Not every meal on the road is born from a breakdown or a tempest. Some are born from pure, unadulterated laziness. She's joking, but there's a truth to it. This next recipe is our go-to when we can't be bothered with a complicated meal, but still want something warm, satisfying, and homemade. It's about the beauty of simplicity. This is the just because bannock bread, she announces. With whatever we can find berry compote. This recipe isn't tied to one place, but to a feeling. It's the feeling of a slow afternoon, of an unplanned stop, of having nowhere to be and all day to get there. Bannock is a simple, versatile bread that can be cooked over a fire on a stick or in a pan. The dough is nothing more than flour, baking powder, salt, and water, with a little oil or butter. It comes together in minutes. I remember making this for the first time by a lake in British Columbia, I say, watching her mix the dough in a bowl with her hands. We'd spent the day hiking and had stumbled upon this perfect, secluded spot. We hadn't planned to stop, but it was too beautiful to leave. So we did. We just stayed. Karen nods, shaping the dough into a rustic-looking disc. While John got a fire going, I went foraging. The bushes around the lake were heavy with wild blueberries and saskatoons. I gathered a hatful and simmered them in a small pot with a spoonful of sugar. It was the most incredible, vibrant, purple compote you've ever seen. The beauty of this recipe is its adaptability. We've made it with foraged berries in Canada, with lingonberry jam we bought from a roadside stall in Sweden, and with a simple drizzle of honey under the olive groves of Greece. It's a blank canvas. Now, the great bannock debate, I say with mock seriousness as Karen places the dough in a lightly oiled, hot skillet. Do you cook it in a pan, like this, for a more scone-like texture? Or do you wrap it around a stick and toast it over the flames for that classic, smoky, campfire flavor? Pan, Karen says definitively. It's more reliable. The stick method is romantic, but you risk dropping it in the fire or ending up with a creation that's burnt on the outside and raw in the middle. An acceptable risk for the superior flavor. I retort. It's a silly, long-running argument that we have every time. It's one of the little rituals that make our life on the road feel like home. The bannock cooks quickly, puffing up in the pan. Karen flips it, and the cooked side is a perfect golden brown. The smell is heavenly, the simple, honest smell of baking bread. While it finishes, she gently warms some leftover berry compote from breakfast. When it's done, she slides the round loaf onto a wooden board and cuts it into wedges. We tear off steaming pieces and dip them into the warm, sweet berries. It's simple perfection. The bread is soft and fluffy on the inside, slightly crisp on the outside. It's comfort food at its most elemental. This, Karen says, a smudge of compote on her chin, is what freedom tastes like to me. Not the grand, sweeping vistas or the epic adventures. But this. The freedom to stop. The freedom to be spontaneous. The freedom to decide, on a whim, that this patch of grass is home for the night, and that fresh, hot bread is what's for dinner. It's a powerful reminder that in a life built around movement, the moments of stillness are just as important. It's about finding joy not just in the destination, but in the unscheduled, unremarkable, and utterly perfect pauses along the way. The fire is now a deep, hypnotic orange. The sky above is a black velvet cloth strewn with diamonds. It's getting late, but we have one final, essential recipe to share. It's less of a recipe, really, and more of a ritual. It wouldn't be a proper campfire without these, I say, pulling out a bag of marshmallows, a bar of good quality dark chocolate and a packet of biscuits. It's time for the grand finale. The end of the day s'more. But this isn't just any s'more. This is the culmination of years of rigorous, dedicated research. This is the serendipity s'more, perfected over countless campfires, from the beaches of Portugal to the fjords of Norway. Every traveler has their traditions, Karen says, snapping the chocolate into squares. The little things they do that create a sense of continuity in a life of constant change. For some, it's a photograph in a certain pose, or collecting a stone from every country. For us, it's this. We've had s'mores on nights so clear we could see the Milky Way arching across the sky. We've had them while watching the ethereal dance of the northern lights. We've shared them with new friends we've met on the road, the gooey, messy process a great equalizer that breaks down barriers. I find 2 perfect marshmallow toasting sticks. The technique is crucial, I explain with the gravity of a bomb disposal expert. You don't want to set it on fire. That's an amateur move. You want a patient, even rotation over the hot embers, coaxing it to a perfect, golden brown state of toasted bliss. While I focus on the marshmallows, Karen prepares the base. And here's where our journey has influenced even this simplest of treats. The twist, she reveals, holding up the components, is twofold. First, the biscuit. We used to use standard digestives. But then, in a little bakery in Tuscany, we discovered these simple, not too sweet oat and honey biscuits. They have a more robust texture, they don't crumble under pressure. And second, the secret ingredient. She takes a tiny pinch of flaky sea salt and sprinkles it directly onto the square of dark chocolate. It sounds small, she says, but it changes everything. The salt cuts through the sweetness of the marshmallow and elevates the flavor of the dark chocolate. It makes it more complex, more adult. It turns a kid's treat into a gourmet dessert. My marshmallows reach the point of perfection, crisp on the outside, molten on the inside. With practiced efficiency, we assemble them. The hot marshmallow is placed on the salted chocolate, which immediately begins to melt. The second biscuit is pressed on top. The first bite is an explosion of texture and taste. The crunch of the biscuit, the rich, slightly bitter, salty chocolate, and the gooey, sweet marshmallow. It's a symphony of campfire perfection. It's the taste of a day well spent, of contentment, of home. This is more than just a dessert, I say, licking sticky marshmallow from my fingers. It's a full stop. It's the perfect way to end a day of driving, hiking, exploring, or even just sitting. It's a moment to pause, look up at the stars, and just be grateful. We sit in comfortable silence, finishing our s'mores, the fire casting dancing shadows on the side of the van. These 5 meals, we realize, are a map of our journey. The paella is a map of kindness. The Moroccan stew, a map of discovery. The Cullen skink, a map of resilience. The bannock bread, a map of spontaneity. And the s'more, it's a map of home. A home that isn't a place, but a feeling we carry with us, wherever the road may lead. So there you have it, Karen says, her voice soft in the stillness of the mountain night. Our top 5. 5 recipes, 5 stories, 5 pieces of our life on the road. We hope it's given you a little taste of what this is all about for us. It's never just been about escaping the 9 to 5. It's about trading a life of routine for a life of ritual. It's about finding inspiration in a spice market and beauty in a storm. It's about realizing that a breakdown can be a blessing, and that the best meals are shared under an open sky. Tomorrow, we'll pack up our kitchen, point serendipity's nose towards that pass over there, and see what the next chapter holds. There will be new roads, new challenges, and, we hope, a few new recipes to add to our collection. Thanks for joining us around our fire tonight. We hope it's inspired you to chase your own adventures, whatever they may be. Until next time, keep living fully, 1 mile, 1 story, and 1 delicious campfire meal at a time. Good night, everyone.